Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to learn on subtopic 11.1, which is body defense. Under the chapter immunity in humans, chapter 11 is a very short topic. It's going to be like really quick. So I'll still go by subtopic 11.1, 11.2 and so on. So today 11.1, get your pen and paper ready and make sure you take your notes. Okay, so before we begin as usual, let's look at the learning standard. So today you should be able to define immunity, antigen and antibody. What are the three things? Then describe the three lines of body defense. We have three lines, yes. The first line, the second line and also the third line. So the first line includes physical and chemical defense, and then second line involves fever, inflammation and phagocytosis, and the third line involves antibody and memory cells. So all this you should be able to cover in this subtopic. Okay, before we go into this, let's see what is another function of the circulatory system. Now, we know the prior function of circulatory system is that it transport oxygen, okay, for cellular respiration, transport oxygen and carbon dioxide to and from the body. Correct. So that is the circulatory system where we also already learned about the mechanism of heart, beat and so on. But now what is another function of the circulatory system which connects to this subtopic? Yeah, the defense body, okay, defense body against diseases causing microorganisms, okay, which we call them as pathogens. So all these bacteria, parasites, viruses, fungi, pollution, toxin, they are all known as pathogen. Pathogens are disease-causing microorganisms which will invade our body and cause us problems. So yeah, so whatever causes down in our immune system, we call them as pathogens. Okay, so now we know what is pathogens, right? Pathogens are now the agents that causes diseases, okay? The microorganism, bacteria, viruses, and whatsoever. Now, how do they enter the body? That is the main question. How can they enter the body? I mean, like, we don't even know when, they can enter the body. So now, how? How? All right, so they enter the body via opening, okay, through the wounds, cuts in the skin, okay, for example, or they can enter through their nose, okay, through insect bites. So all that can cause us diseases, okay, where you have like what, the Aedes mosquito biting you, you get dengue, okay, you have bacteria in your wounds, then you get all sorts of other itchiness, rashes or whatever that can cause you any kinds of disease, okay, or bacteria going through your nose, or even that COVID-19, okay, virus that can enter your through your nasals. Okay, now, so these pathogens, but okay, now these pathogens can only cause disease if they successfully infect the body. If they don't have any place to enter, there's no wound, there's no, you take care of your hygiene, you don't touch your face all the time. So these pathogens actually cannot penetrate your body. So that's when you don't get this kind of diseases. But if you don't protect your hygiene, then it's a party for these pathogens. Okay. Okay, now there are two keywords that you should know in this subtopic, which is antigen and also antibody. They are very much, related to one another. So now the body defense system recognizes pathogen as foreign particles known as antigens. Okay, so antigens are actually the foreign particles that enters the body and then stimulate the immune response. Okay, now antigen stimulates the lymphocytes to produce antibodies into the blood flow and destroy the antigens. Okay, so the antigens are bacteria, virus, okay, anything, or venom, dust. So that are the examples of antigen. What are antibodies? So antibodies are protein found on the lymphocyte surface, okay, or they are also the protein released by the lymphocyte into the blood plasma. Okay, so you can look at the diagram here on the antibody shape. Okay, antibody shape are usually Y. So if you see this kind of picture, then you know this is actually antibody and these are antigen. found on the surface, okay, of the microorganism. Now, so antibodies are the one that destroys the antigen. Example of antibodies are like lysine, opsonine, and there are many other names. Now, the interaction between this antigen and antibodies, okay, which causes antigens to be destroyed, okay, this is called as an immune system where antibodies fight the antigens, okay, immune response, okay. So these are the picture, okay, if you can look, this is from your textbook, so you can look at the picture here, okay. So there is the antibody binding to the antigens. All right, I have another video I have to show you, I mean something if you want to learn extra, so I will put the link in the description box below, and you can have a look at that video as well on the mechanism of between antigen and also the antibodies. Okay, now we have seen antigen, we have seen antibodies. Now we will go into what is the meaning of immunity and immunization. Okay, when our body can fight a disease, we are said to be immune to that disease, correct? Okay, now so immunity is the ability of an organism to defend itself against infection by pathogens. Okay, whether we can defend or not, it's based on our immunity. So we say immunity level is high, immunity level is low, depends. Okay, immunization is actually the process, okay, process in which the individual immune system becomes fortified against an agent, okay, or we call it as immunogen. So it's the whole process, immunization process. Okay, now in this immunity in humans, we have three lines of defense. You have seen, I mean, we have talked about it in the learning standard earlier, correct or not? Now we have the passive mechanism and also the active mechanism. Now, passive mechanism or the first line defense, okay, we can divide them into chemical and also physical. Okay, chemical defense and physical defense. Now, physical defense includes skin, mucous membranes, blood clotting, cilia, okay, and then we have chemical, the mucus, the lysozyme, acid, sweat, sebum from your skin, okay, that oily skin is actually preventing bacteria from penetrating your body. Then the active mechanism is the second and third line defense, okay. So here second line defense includes fever, inflammation, and phagocytosis. If this doesn't work, then it will go into the third line defense, which is it involves using the antibodies and also the memory cells. So the second line defense acts after the microorganism bypass the first line defense. It is unspecific, okay, and the third line defense will take over the role of the body defense if the pathogens succeed in bypassing the first and the second line. So third line is not necessary if the pathogens can be prevented from the first and the second line. It's just like going to war, okay. And so the third line defense is the one that involves the immunity response. First and second, no. Third line involves immunity response, and it depends on the ability of the antibodies to recognize and protect the body from that specific antigen or pathogens. So the third line defense is the final defense of the body. Okay. Okay, now let's look at the first line of defense. Now, the first line in physical barriers are mainly our skin. The skin is the main main function of a skin is to protect the body, correct or not? So protect from pathogens. Now, the skin epidermis, they form a structure that cannot be penetrated by the microorganism. So they have like an outer keratinized layer which function as a barrier. Okay, and our skin has low moisture, low pH, pH 5.5, which is neutral. So this will actually balance the skin and prevent entry of microorganism. Okay, now next is the blood clots or the scab. You know that brown color layer on your skin. Once you are wounded, you cut yourself, you have the brownish layer that is called a scab. Now, the scabs that form on the wound will also prevent the pathogens from entering the body. Okay. Next is mucus, cilia, antimicrobial secretion. Okay, they all come together. So it's the way where many pathogens gain entry to the body. But now this mucous membrane are found in, for example, respiratory tract, digestive tract, urinary or reproductive tract. Okay, so all these mucous membrane in these tracts will actually function as a physical barrier towards the entry of microorganism into the body. The cilia is the one, if you can look at the picture here, the cilia is the one, okay, that moves the organism trapped in the mucus, okay, from the respiratory tract or any other tract to be digested in the body itself. So it just removes the whole pathogens that is hiding in your digestive or respiratory tract, any other tracts in your body. Okay. Okay, now let's look at the chemical barriers in the first line of defense. So the chemical barriers is whatever that is produced by your body that can actually prevent the entry of microorganisms or the pathogens. Now we have saliva, tears, the skin when we sweat, the sweat is chemical barrier. Okay, mucus lining, stomach acid, and also some bacteria, okay, some good gut bacteria. Okay, now the mucus is secreted by the mucous membrane to trap dirt, okay, and also to trap dirt particles and bacteria. The lysozyme in the tears, okay, the tear fluid, they have lysozyme, okay, will actually kill bacteria by digesting the cell wall of the bacteria. Okay, hydrochloric acid in the gastric juice can kill pathogens. This one you have learned in your chapter for digestion, where you know that hydrochloric acid is the one that actually kill bacteria in your stomach. Okay, that's why you need that acidic medium. Next is earwax. Okay, besides tears, the earwax is also antibacterial, antifungal, which can actually help to trap dirt particles and dust. Okay, sweat. Next is sweat. Sweat has and sebaceous secretion. They have bacteriostatic substance. Okay, for example, lactic acid, which actually helps to kill the pathogens. Okay, they also have lysozymes actually. All right, and lastly is the sebum. Sebum is the oily surface that you get, you know, oily space that you get, okay, which actually is secreted by the sebum gland of the skin to protect the skin by killing the pathogens and also the fungi. So oily skin is not so bad, but you know, you cannot have too much or too less. So, yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is the summary of the first line of defense. If you don't get that clear, you can have this table in your notes. Okay, you can pause this video, just quickly grab the notes, and once you're done, we will resume to the next slide. Okay, now let's look at the second line of defense. Now, second line defense will only take place if the microorganism bypass the first line of defense. Okay, that means, yeah, you know what it means. So when you have that second line of defense, we have categorized them into fever, inflammation, and phagocytosis. Okay, so let's talk about fever first. Fever is when the high body temperature increases the cell metabolism rate. Okay, especially increases the rate of phagocytosis towards the pathogens. High temperature also actually helps to denature protein of the pathogens, okay, which will make their survival in human body to be quite difficult. All right, high temperature also helps in the healing process. Now, if that high temperature doesn't help, then inflammation. Inflammation is where the damaged cells due to the injury or infected by pathogens releases many types of chemicals. Okay, so these chemicals causes the fluid in the surrounding blood vessel to flow into damaged tissues and actually cause swelling. Okay, so the swollen tissues will actually help to isolate the foreign materials in one place. Okay, so the release of these chemicals also attract phagocytes to move to damaged tissues and then swallow pathogens together with the damaged cells. Okay, so in the end, what happens is that the pus, okay, the yellowish pus which you have in your body once you get inflammation, Okay, the pus actually consists of phagocyte cells, pathogens, and also dead tissues. So this inflammation actually provides a very harsh condition for the pathogens to survive, but it's conducive for healing. So if you get pus, nana, we call it in Malay, okay, that is actually the body reacting to fight the pathogens actually in your body. Okay, now, if that doesn't help, then phagocytosis. Phagocytosis is when a tissue is wounded. Okay, inflammation occurs and then the phagocytes will actually enter the wounded tissue. There are two types of phagocytes, which is the neutrophils and the monocytes. Neutrophils are most abundant phagocytes. We have plenty of them and they move freely in the blood vessel. They can move out of the gaps of the capillary walls to reach the infected area because they are attracted to these chemicals released by this microorganism. We call them as chemotaxis. Okay, so these neutrophils, they are very in love with chemotaxis. So they can just go anywhere, cross the capillary walls and so on. Okay, and then they swallow and they destroy the pathogens on the way. Okay, so they are always first to reach compared to macrophages, okay, at the wounded area. The macrophage, okay, it's formed from monocytes, okay, macrophage. So some already exist in the body tissue waiting for the pathogens, while some other are actually moving through the tissue to find and swallow any pathogen presence in the way. So it's a bit of like a scanner, you just move around in the body, or it will form later on. So they also swallow and digest any bacteria, viruses, and also foreign particles that are found in the body. Okay, so in the end, the phagocyte will expel the remaining of the digested microorganism out of the cells. So that's a problem solved. Okay, now let's go into the third line of defense. The third line of defense, the major and the best line of defense that we have in our body, where it triggers the immune response. Okay, the immunity response is actually referring to the body reaction to produce specific antibodies to fight the pathogens or the antigens, all right, that have been identified. Okay, so this presence of these antigens will stimulate the body immune system to produce antibodies to fight the antigens. Okay, the antibodies produced function to destroy and also weaken the pathogen as well as neutralizing the toxin. Okay, there are two groups of leukocytes or the white blood cells that are involved in the immune reaction, okay, which is the lymphocyte and the macrophages. Okay, there are two types of lymphocyte which is the T lymphocyte, okay, which functions to attack cells infected by the pathogens and produce chemical that will stimulate the B lymphocytes. Okay, the next lymphocyte is the B lymphocytes, okay, or B cell, T cells we call them. They function to divide and form plasma cell and also B memory cells. Okay, now the role of the plasma cell is actually to produce antibodies that match with the antigen and then act to destroy the antigens. Okay, the B memory cells, okay, the B memory cells will actually function to keep the information. So they remember about the pathogens, so they don't forget. Okay, so memory cells are very important. And then if the individual is exposed to the same pathogen in the future, okay, so the plasma cells will be activated immediately to produce antibodies quickly and also abundantly to destroy the pathogens. So next time, first time is a bit slow when we get the disease for the first time, but the second time you get it, then it will be really fast because you already have the B memory cells. The memory cells already remember you, cari semua ada. Okay, so then what's the problem? They can fight easily. Okay, the macrophages are the one that usually swallow and digest the dead pathogen cells through the phagocytosis process. Okay, so the macrophages are involved. We have the T cell, we have the B cell. B is mostly on the memory, they remember. Okay. Okay, so now let's have a hot question for you. Now, sometimes doctor prescribe antibiotics to treat some infectious disease. Okay, I'm sure you have eaten or taken antibiotics for all your life, because you know we love antibiotics. Doctor will advise taking all the antibiotics prescribed for the recommended period, 3 days, 5 days, 1 week, it depends. Now explain why is it important to follow the steps. If we don't follow the step, we don't take the antibiotics, what is going to happen? Now, if the antibiotic prescribed is not taken completely, okay, you take for 1 day and then you just forget about the antibiotics, I'm fine, why should I take antibiotics? Now, if that happens, then the undestroyed bacteria will become immune, okay, towards the antibiotic. So this will produce a bacterial strain which is immune to the antibiotic. So the strain of the bacteria will grow very rapidly, okay, and the existing antibiotic would not be able to destroy it anymore. So once infected, treatment with the available antibiotic will not be effective, and the immune system may not be able to fight against the new bacterial strain. So that's why it's very important for us to take the antibiotics. Okay, we are done actually. So now here is that you have to do formative practice 11.1. All right, so here you have to state what is the meaning of immunity. All right, name 2 characteristics of a skin that allows the skin to react as effective first line of defense. Skin as first line of defense, how effective it is, the 2 characteristics. Okay, how does phagocyte destroy pathogens that have penetrated the first line of defense? Okay, and also differentiate between antigens and antibodies, which we already covered in the slides earlier. You have seen the 2 differentiation, so you can do this also. Okay, well, we are done. So I hope this helps you, and if this helps you, please do not forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you and bye bye.